a great advocate for this issue, and you know, I think one of the best policies that ever was enacted by the Kentucky legislature in our modern history is this county home rule statute. It was passed in 1978, and this statute was designed to address previously kind of fuzzy, unclear vision that had existed concerning what the legislative authority of counties actually is in Kentucky. So a simple reading of that statute, I believe, makes it unmistakably clear that the legislature delegates to counties its own authority to promote economic development as long as the policies they are enacting have not been expressly prohibited by the legislature. So tonight, as we heard, 12 counties have fully passed right-to-work ordinances. 4 counties have passed first readings of those ordinances, and the state legislature has not prohibited them from doing so. Because right-to-work policies clearly have contributed to the economic development of the 25 states that have passed such laws on a state level, and because they protect the right of individuals to choose to say yes or no to union membership and dues without losing their jobs or otherwise being penalized, and because of the county home rule statute, these county right-to-work ordinances fit the county home rule statute, I think, like the Hilltoppers fit in Diddle Arena and the Wildcats fit in Rupp Arena. It just fits. Art Laffer, who was one of President Reagan's economic advisors, once said that the 2 most important tools a state can have in its economic toolbox is low tax rates and a right-to-work law. Relevant data from credible sources like the National Institute for Labor Relations Research, the U.S. Census Bureau, the Bureau of Economic Analysis, supports what Mr. Laffer said. For instance, real manufacturing GDP grew by 87% in the decade between 2002 and 2012 in those 22 states that had right to work, but fell by 2% in states without. Employment, incomes, and population grew by 43, 209, and 39% respectively in states with right-to-work laws between the 2 decades of 1990 and 2010. And this is the next data point I think is especially important to know, and that is that more people, primarily younger adults, are moving into right-to-work states. Between 2000 and 2009, more than 4.9 million native-born Americans moved from non-right-to-work states to states where union membership is a choice and not a mandate. That's an average of 1,450 people every single day. And staying on that point about population, between 2002 and 2012, the population among 25 to 34-year-olds grew by more than 11% in right-to-work states, while non-right-to-work states averaged growth in that in the 3 most populated Kentucky counties along that same border in that same area grew by less than 4% during that entire decade. You know what that means? Growth in private sector employment in non-right-to-work Kentucky counties was only 25% that of right-to-work counties along the same border during that entire decade. That's a lot of growth that we missed out on. Now, such an opportunity gap doesn't just affect Republicans or Democrats or liberals or independents. It affects all of us, everyone. And when you can deliver messages like that outside of Frankfurt and outside of Washington, then you can have the results that we have seen. Around 118 votes have been taken on these second readings of local ordinances. 113 yeses and 5 noes. After all, it's not just Republicans who want higher wages and more opportunity for their children and grandchildren. Everybody wants that. Suburbanites, city folks, country folks, Democrats, everybody. And all of the best data point to that happening. Now, there are a couple of myths that I'm going to address and then in closing here tonight. One of those myths has been that right to work really only benefits a few people at the top. That it creates more jobs maybe, but that they're lower paying, they're less prestigious, all of which means right to work for less. And yet between 2001, when Oklahoma passed its right-to-work law, and 2012, that first decade, average weekly wages in the Sooner State increased from $551 to $801 by the end of 2012, and that figures out to be a really big annual raise, like about $13,000. Incomes increased by an average of $1,000 in Indiana. just the first year after right to work was implemented, and those workers who chose not to pay union dues got another raise of about $750 to $1,000 additional dollars. They decided they would put that money in their pocket rather than giving it to labor unions to send to Pittsburgh or Washington or Chicago to support big government and progressive political causes that they, the members, do not believe in. There are 142,000 more jobs in Michigan today. There are 50% higher wage growth than the national average since they passed right to work. So if right to work really does mean right to work for less, then why is it that every new automotive manufacturing plant that has been built in the United States since Toyota was built in Georgetown in the mid-1980s, why have every one of those plants been built in right to work states? Surely our union friends aren't going to say, are they, that automotive manufacturing jobs, like the ones over here at GM or Ford or even Toyota, mean right to work for less? They're not going to say that, are they? Those are the good jobs. Another myth is that right to work doesn't figure prominently in the decisions by companies looking to expand or relocate. So critics will say, well, most companies we meet with don't even bring right to work up, or it's not a major issue with them. But that doesn't tell nearly the whole story. The story of those companies that don't even bother to knock on the door of the Commonwealth. We know that major manufacturers like Beretta and Caterpillar either left or bypassed Kentucky altogether for right to work Texas and Tennessee and Georgia. We know Toyota took 1,300 jobs from northern Kentucky and they went to Texas, and somebody says, well, that's because they were consolidating their operations down there. And I said, well, why aren't they consolidating their operations in Kentucky? And what we don't know is how many companies drove through Kentucky or flew over Kentucky without even bothering to stop and talk with us about the possibilities, because we have this closed for new business sign along our border that will remain in place as long as we're not a right to work state. We know that site selectors tell us that up to 50% of firms looking to relocate or expand don't even bother to seriously consider Kentucky. I was in Boone County recently when they passed. They're the 4th largest county in Kentucky, and they recently passed a right to work ordinance unanimously. But before they took that vote, Jim McGraw of KMK Consulting, a site selection consultant who works in that area of the state quite a bit, told the fiscal court in Boone County, and I quote, on any kind of level playing field, right to work is going to make the difference. And then the other argument that you hear is that right to work policies will result in what is known as freeloading, where employees at a unionized plant will benefit from representation by the union that's at that plant. In its recent ruling upholding Indiana's right to work law, passed in January 2012 but challenged by the labor unions, and this ruling came out just this past November, the Indiana Supreme Court ruled that when labor unions apply to represent companies, they must indicate whether they will provide members only or exclusive representation. Unions always choose the exclusive representation option. If they chose the members only option, then that would open up the plant to competition from other unions for membership at that plant. So it turns out that without right to work protections, the unions actually have choices regarding representation, while their members really have none when it comes to membership. In dismissing the challenge, and I love this quote because the Indiana Supreme Court, it was not a legalese, it was easy to understand. They said, and I quote, the union's federal obligation to represent all employees in a bargaining unit is optional. And they went on to say that the union is more than compensated because they get to provide exclusive representation. And so, right to work laws are not anti-union. Not only do right to work laws protect the right of both unions to organize and individuals to join them, but the fact is that union membership has grown the fastest in right to work states over the past several years. Now, we've heard some right to work critics say, well, you know, job applicants know that what they're getting into. If they apply to work at the GM plant in Bowling Green, they know it's a unionized plant, and they know they'll have to pay dues, and if they don't want to do that, let them apply elsewhere. Okay, but what about the workers currently employed there? Don't they have the right to choose yes or no to union membership without losing their jobs? If the unions are doing a good job of representing their members, we have even seen in right-to-work states that unions can thrive. But they have to do it the right way, through persuasion, not coercion. And so, union membership, and we have lots of members, but I'll just give you this one about union membership. Union membership in Tennessee in 2013 grew by 25% in 1 year. Since Indiana became a right-to-work state, 50,000 new union members have signed up. So this is not an attempt to get rid of unions or union membership. In fact, one of the highest ranking union officials in the UAW, his name is Gary Castile. He holds a prominent position with United Auto Workers. He said that he prefers right-to-work environments for organizing. And I quote, "This is something I've never understood," he said, "that people think right-to-work hurts unions. To me, it helps them." So this is about economic prosperity. It's not about getting rid of unions. It's not about union membership. After all, a growing economy means more companies moving into the area, which means more opportunities, not just for jobs and growth, but also for unions to organize and add to their ranks. The difference again is they must do it the right way, through persuasion and not coercion. And that's the way we think it should be. Thank you.